What could be more perfect than two bitter rivals, Egypt and Israel, coming together in a peaceful agreement? That's exactly what happened during the Camp David Accords. This historic event marked a significant turning point in Middle Eastern politics and continues to have an impact on the region today. But what exactly were the Camp David Accords? And why do they hold such importance? Let's find out. The Camp David Accords were brought to life by two key figures, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin. Their signatures on these agreements marked the culmination of almost a fortnight of clandestine negotiations, overseen by President Jimmy Carter at Camp David, a notable retreat for U.S. presidents. This monumental event took place on September 17, 1978. These accords actually built a bridge, stabilizing the contentious relationship between Israel and Egypt. To understand the significance of the Camp David Accords, we must journey back to the fragmented politics in the Middle East in the mid-20th century. It all began in 1947, when the United Nations proposed a partition of the British-governed Palestine. This plan would create both a Jewish and an Arab state, leaving Jerusalem as an independent entity under UN trusteeship. However, the Arab states firmly rejected this partition. In this chaos, Israel declared its independence on May 15, 1948. Leading to the outbreak of the First Arab-Israeli War. At that time, no state was established for the Arab Palestinians. Instead, Egypt seized control of the Gaza Strip, and Jordan assumed sovereignty over the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The political landscape was further complicated during the Six-Day War of June 1967, where Israel occupied the Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. Jimmy Carter, the newly elected U.S. president, committed to achieving a comprehensive Middle East peace settlement. He based his efforts on UN Resolution 242, which demanded Israel's withdrawal from the occupied territories, Arab recognition, and peace with Israel, and a just resolution for the displaced Palestinian refugees. This pursuit of peace led Carter to meet with the leaders of the Middle East. He found an ally in President Sadat, who desired not only the return of the Israeli-occupied Sinai to Egypt, but also peace for his people and a stronger relationship with the United States. Carter also met with Israeli Prime Minister Begin, who was open to discussing the measures Carter and Sadat had proposed. It's widely perceived that Sadat's motivations extended beyond regional peace. He reached out to his adversary with one hand, while extending the other towards the United States and its allies. Egypt's economy had been languishing in a state of stagnation for an extended period, particularly following the blockade of the Suez Canal. This was a strategic move taken by Egypt to retaliate against Israel's bold incursions into the Sinai Peninsula and the West Bank during the Six-Day War. What occurred behind the closed doors of the cabins at Camp David was nothing short of extraordinary. With tensions running high, President Carter played the role of interpreter and mediator. He held separate meetings with each leader in their respective cabins, maneuvering through the web of hostility and mistrust that pervaded their interactions. Yet, in this unlikely setting, a consensus emerged. The leaders of the two nations found common ground on a number of issues. The Camp David Accords thus gave birth to two key agreements that would reshape the political terrain of the Middle East. The first agreement, articulately titled A Framework for Peace in the Middle East, heralded a new dawn for the region. It advocated for the establishment of a self-governing authority in the Israeli-occupied territories of Gaza and the West Bank, hinting at the first steps towards Palestinian statehood. It was a light of hope for the Palestinians, who had long yearned for recognition and autonomy. Furthermore, this agreement called for the full implementation of UN Resolution 242. This included, most notably, the withdrawal of Israeli forces and civilians from the lands of the West Bank that had been seized during the Six-Day War. It was a bold move, acknowledging and rectifying past transgressions. Finally, the agreement recognized the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people. It prescribed processes to grant them full autonomy within the West Bank and Gaza within 5 years. This marked a major shift in regional politics, as it directly addressed the plight of the Palestinians and offered a roadmap towards self-determination. As we said earlier, Jerusalem's future was curiously absent from the Camp David Accords, reflecting the city's contentious nature. Both Israelis and Palestinians covet Jerusalem as their capital, a conflict that remained unresolved. and was brought back into focus in 2017 by President Donald Trump's declaration recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The second agreement, named a framework for the conclusion of a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel, paved the way for the Israel-Egypt Peace Treaty, ratified in March 1979 at the White House. This treaty demanded Israel's military withdrawal from the Sinai Peninsula and the restoration of full diplomatic relations with Egypt. In exchange, Egypt agreed to permit Israeli vessels to navigate the Suez Canal and Straits of Tiran, a critical passage linking Israel to the Red Sea. A noteworthy provision of the resultant treaty was the commitment of the United States to provide substantial annual subsidies, including military aid, to both countries. This commitment has translated into $1.3 billion per year in military aid to Egypt and $3 billion to Israel, in addition to other financial assistance and investments. This financial commitment, originating from the Israel-Egypt Peace Treaty, has persisted to this day. The Camp David Accords was surely a crucial moment in Middle East diplomacy, but still, it received a mixed response. The Arab League, for example, viewed Egypt's recognition of Israel's right to exist as a betrayal. Consequently, Egypt suffered the harsh penalty of suspension from the League for a decade, only regaining full membership in 1989. The United Nations also withheld approval from the Framework for Peace in the Middle East, a significant component of the Accords. The primary reason for this stance was the absence of Palestinian representation and input in drafting the agreement. This perspective underscores the importance of inclusive dialogue in peace negotiations, a principle that cannot be overstated in a region as complex and volatile as the Middle East. Nevertheless, one cannot downplay the role the Camp David Accords played in stabilizing relationships between Egypt and Israel. These agreements also paved the way for the Oslo Accords, signed by Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization in 1993. The Oslo Accords resolved significant issues and brought the region a step closer to the elusive goal of lasting peace. Indeed, the Camp David Accords, despite their imperfections, set a precedent for negotiations and compromise in a region often characterized by deep-seated hostilities and conflict. So, this was a brief overview of the Camp David Accords, a landmark event in Middle East diplomacy that continues to shape the region's political landscape. It showed us that even among strife and hostility, peace can be achieved through dialogue and negotiation, and it serves as a reminder of the importance of inclusivity and compromise in any peace process. Let us hope that future generations can build upon this foundation and work towards a more peaceful and harmonious Middle East. If you enjoyed the video, give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also, let us know in the comments if you want to see more videos on similar topics. Goodbye until next time.